And now, ladies and gentlemen,
Put your thumbs up and say it's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, Tickety Boo, everything's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, son. Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo! Welcome to Tickety Boo. In today's episode, we're diving into your questions, covering things from setting boundaries to managing anxiety and stress and so much more. Ian, Iona and myself are here to give real answers, share a few laughs and hopefully some insights you can take into everyday life. Whether it's finding calm in the chaos or learning to put yourself first, we've got plenty to talk about. So let's jump right in. So welcome to another episode, guys. In this one, we're going to be answering questions from some of the listeners of the podcast. I kind of really like doing these because I've not even shown you the questions. It's a bit like mastermind. Like to keep you on your toes. So the first question comes from Sarah, and she has asked, how do I set better boundaries in my life without feeling guilty? I've kind of got a viewpoint on this. I don't know what you guys think about it. As somebody that has struggled, does struggle with reinforcing boundaries, what I find is if you get in touch more with your values, then you don't have to reinforce boundaries, if that makes sense. So if like you really value peace, you know, stuff that brings you peace in your life, and then something comes into or something is in your world that doesn't bring you that, then that's not aligning with your boundaries. And if you have the choice not to do it, you don't do it. And that piece can be friends, jobs, situations, opportunities. Great opportunity might come into your life and you go, oh, it sounds absolutely fantastic, but it means I'm going to have to do loads of extra work. I'm going to be traveling loads. I'm going to have to, compromise my time with my partner or my family. Then it's a no. Or, you might have... you really value respect, people respecting you. If you're constantly being disrespected, you don't have to have a boundary, because your value is, if you disrespect me, I just remove myself from the situation. So rather than reinforcing and sitting behind boundaries, sit behind your values. And then your values is like a filter, and if it comes through your values and it doesn't match, remove yourself.
What I would love to add on to that is, all websites have a policy, like privacy and policies. Like, have a set, like, figure out what are your non-negotiables. What is your own personal policy? So what will you not tolerate? And what are you willing to do? Or what are you a stand for? And just maybe a list of 10 and just go, and if it doesn't support this and it crosses those boundaries, it aligns with the value system. It's like, no, like that doesn't fit with my boundaries. Like this doesn't fit with my policies and procedures. Personal policies and procedures. It's really easy, and you look at that, it's like, no, it doesn't support this. Again, just reflection. I
think also if you consistently keep finding yourself, like where she said, how do I set boundaries? So she obviously feels like her boundaries are being crossed or not respected. Maybe she needs to take a look at some of the people and things she's got in her life. Mm-hmm. Because if you're constantly feeling like your boundaries are being crossed, something's off, isn't it? Something's wrong.
But this is the trouble. It's when you try and establish new boundaries within old relationships. And one of the boundaries that I find difficult with is people that want to take advantage of my inability to say no. So they keep coming to me because they know it's a weak point. I have an inability to say no, I'll just give in. Or I'll give them things that maybe I feel they're taking advantage, they're taking the mick. So setting those boundaries, it's vital, but it's so difficult with people that where they've already established their norms, and their norms are, I'm going to come in and trample all over.
It's almost like you need to put distance between you.
Sometimes long arming. Exactly, long arming. You don't have to cut off a relationship. Just long arm them. Just hold them a little bit of distance, and then when they let back in, they only come as far as your boundary. That's something that I would suggest personally.
I've done with a couple of people that in my universe kept trampling over my boundaries, and very much like that, I found it difficult to say no. And I just did a slow fade, no dramatic, right, that's it, I'm off, storming off, just literally slow faded. And it's quite interesting. Those that think that you add value and are important notice a slow fade. Those that were just in it for themselves sometimes throw a bit of a strop, but generally just find somebody else. So I think it's important to recognise that if you constantly feel like your boundaries are being crossed, have a look at yourself first. Take a look at yourself and what you've been prepared to tolerate, and also ask yourself, are you surrounded by the right people for you?
Yeah, and understand your boundaries are your boundaries.
Yeah.
You can't impose boundaries on other people. They're your boundaries to maintain. And unfortunately, you can't, there's only so much you control with other people. But one thing that you can do is just say no.
Yeah.
Which is, again, another thing. This is something we spoke about in the past, where when people are crossing your boundaries and you're struggling to say no, well, just say, okay, not today, another day, or whatever, just put it back. Rather than just rolling over. And then that's a way of you taking the guilt out of setting boundaries, because I think that's a lot of it.
Guilt.
You feel guilty for maintaining and withholding your boundaries.
So don't try and fix all your boundaries at once. Pick one, pick a value, and look at the different areas in your life where that value has not been met or has been constantly disrespected, and ask yourself, what can I do about this? Like, I like your phrase of long arming. Making the decision to remove yourself from situations. You don't need to make a big announcement about it, but actually you taking some kind of action. It's a good question. Okay, this is from James. What's the best way to manage stress and anxiety in a world that feels really overwhelming at the moment? That's a good one. One thing I've noticed in the therapy room with people that are saying they feel really stressed and they feel really overwhelmed, and it's a consistent, is they spend way too much time on social media and too much time watching news, taking news in, focusing on everything that's not right in the world. So they're sort of overwhelming themselves. A lot of my clients, one in particular who's jumping right into my mind at the moment, insist on watching the news 3 times a day.
Wow.
And let's be honest, the news very rarely tell you anything that's positive. And the news doesn't normally change that much. It's just like a bit of a eat, sleep, repeat, isn't it? Same stuff, different time, presented maybe in a slightly different way. So I think what I would say to you, it was James, is removing stuff that you can in your life at the moment that's causing you unnecessary stress, of which, let's be honest, the couple of things, social media and news, are definitely contributors to that. We talked about in the previous question, people, friends.
And also with overwhelm, what I've found with my clients and people is, if you're removing something, let's say the news or scrolling on social media, replace it with something else that is like a positive pattern and behavior, because don't just take that away. And there's so many things we can do that have been proven to help our nervous system, because something that can happen is like you start to feel like you're functioning up here and you're sort of almost vibrating. It's getting outside, going for a walk. It could literally be going and standing barefoot on the grass. Like I've talked about this before. They did it in Pretty Woman. Like we can do it. Like it really helps calm down your parasympathetic nervous system. Breath work. I wouldn't necessarily go as far as Wim Hof breath work for someone who's really overwhelmed. I would go for much more like prana breathing, something much more gentle. Like all of these practices that if you're trying to soothe your system, so you're trying to do the opposite. So replace that, whatever's triggering you, with something positive, nurturing, and let that replace it.
I think looking at your routines as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think, our routines very much tie into our overall well-being. tiny little shifts in your routine can make you feel very different as well. So like you just rightfully said there, Iona, rather than doom scrolling or watching the doom news at 10 o'clock, your small shift in your schedule could be that you read a book at 10 o'clock, or you're doing some breath work, or you're exercising, or you're learning something. But your routine, and by the way, you probably don't actually recognise a lot of your routine because you're unconsciously conforming to a pattern that you've ran for a long time. So if you tend to be one of these people that dives out of bed 10 minutes before they need to be out the door, get a better morning routine where you can get up a bit earlier, slowly get into the day, enjoy your breakfast, maybe go for a walk, or, do something different in the morning.
When we're talking about routine, how about we try and establish periods of work and rest?
Yeah.
Whereas that's how it used to be before mobile phones.
Yeah.
What happens now is your phone's always bleeping. You basically validate yourself on how fast you can respond, because that's what people expect now. Just set your own personal boundaries and establish periods of work and periods of rest.
Do you know, that is so true what you've just said about stepping away from this constant connection to stuff that is competing for your attention.
And it is stuff. It's like we used to have weather. We used to have summer. We used to have winter, and now we just have weather. And it's a bit like that with work. We just have days just full of stuff.
Well, we've been in here today recording episodes, and after the last episode we stopped for a coffee break and a chat. I picked up my mobile phone. There's 8 WhatsApp messages sat there waiting for my attention. And there'll be various things, from people sharing jokes to work stuff to other things. Now, if we were recording this podcast not that many years ago, we would have recorded and I would have sat with a coffee and probably just chatted, because my attention, there was nothing out with that was competing for my attention. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? We're constantly being drawn into other stuff.
I heard something by Joanna Lumley the other day. She doesn't have a mobile phone, and she refuses to, because she said we're basically on call the whole time. Like, as you leave the house, because you're contactable all the time. So one of the things that I love to do is, my phone doesn't charge in my bedroom anymore. Something I learned from when I lost my phone and didn't have it for 2 weeks. It was amazing. So the phone is out of the bedroom. I'm not on it, because we're on call the whole time. And it's that we're readily available, and it's like we get ready to answer, to respond.
But you hear this, I need to have my phone with me in case there's, somebody needs to get hold of me in an emergency.
That's exactly what I was thinking, just as Iona was speaking. And yeah, you're absolutely right. And I know I'm a serial fan. I need to put it down. It is unhealthy.
Yeah.
We were just saying I've been a bit stressed this last week, and in fairness, I don't think I've had the phone sat next to me all the time, constantly waiting for a text or something.
Anticipatory.
Yeah. So tonight I'm going to go home, and tonight it goes in the drawer.
Yeah.
I have my phone everybody knows that I don't answer the phone at 9 o'clock. And my phone isn't on again until 8 o'clock in the morning. And I don't pick it up until, I have to go to it. But it's the whole period of time. So if friends are trying to get hold of me, they'll leave a message saying, okay, I know you're not going to answer the phone, but when you do get this, can you get back to me? It's fine.
I suppose for the benefit of the people that are listening to this, what about if someone needed to get hold of you in an emergency? Is there a process for that?
I have my phone set so that if somebody phones twice, it'll get through. And also there's certain people that even when my phone is silenced, they will get through. So obviously my son, certain family members. So so there's a whole way you can do that with your phone.
So you've been smart and told the technology, for this stuff it can come through, but for the rest of it, My brother, who's big into technology, came up with the idea of, you can now buy these mobile phones that are just a mobile phone, they're not
old school.
Yeah, it can send an SMS and it can make a phone call. And actually, when you go out with your family or you're doing something for you, that phone goes with you. So people can still ring you, but you've not got a camera, Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of that stuff competing for your attention, which you feel compelled to put information on when you're supposed to be out enjoying your experience, and there's just a phone.
That's brilliant.
Another
love
thing
that.
I've done, I've turned all notifications off. So for Facebook, I actually have to go and open the app to see if there's somebody sent a message or has liked something. So like I have there's no information there.
You can do it, I think, on smartphones. You can turn off data,
Yeah.
and then you'll only get phone calls. And the thing is, you're just going to feel drawn to turn your data back on to check. But if you've got one of these, and they're not expensive, apparently, these phones that are just a phone, you literally, as much as you might be compelled to, you can't.
Yeah.
Do you think some of this is with having access to all these different apps and social media on our phone? We're not used to having that void of relaxation. But if we sit down, we feel, because we can't turn off anymore, we feel we have to fill it with something.
Well, have you ever
So
had that feeling of, where's my phone? You turn and your phone's not there, and it's almost like you've lost your child. And and you used to go to the shopping centre and you turn around and your kid's not there. You get that same kind of feeling. Like
I misplace my phone all the time. I have to get my son to find my iPhone because I forget where I put it in the house. Like I've made such a point of not having it with me, and it's like it's liberating.
I really do feel for somebody that's been overwhelmed by the world, unplugging yourself for a period of time. That doesn't mean you have to go incommunicado and not be about, but stepping away from it for a period of time, and put your phone in the other room so you can be truly present with the person. How many times have you been sat with someone having a coffee or a chat, and you're talking to them and they pick up the phone and they're writing messages or they're reading other stuff, and you're not truly present with that person?
And for the other person, they don't feel like a priority.
Yeah.
Which it's actually quite disrespectful. I'm not saying I don't do it.
I'm
guilty here.
Guilty, Your Honour.
Hands up. But yeah, when you say that, I think, well, actually, that's quite disrespectful to the other person, because they just don't feel like a priority in that moment. And they've give up their time to be in that moment with you. So if you can't give them the same courtesy.
So part of you's in the conversation, part of your mind is elsewhere. And actually the best thing you can do is leave your phone in your bag.
Yeah, because having your phone on the table upside down is still, you're partly there. Like ever since we've been having phones, our phones are not allowed at the kitchen table.
Oh, right, okay.
And if somebody's phone rings while we're sat eating or in conversation, we don't get it. Like yeah. So I think and coming back to the question that we were asked, is like, see what you can eliminate to make it easier for you to get rid of that overwhelming and the doing.
In seeing what you can eliminate, how about you prioritise what's important to you? Just make a list, prioritise what's important, so you hit the things that are your priority on the list first.
Yeah.
The things that are important to you. Firstly, you feel good about yourself, and secondly, I'm sure you'll find out you've got more time than you think.
Can you remember God, I'm making myself sound like an absolute fossil right now.
You are, my friend.
When you used to go home and listen to the messages on the voicemail at home.
Yeah.
So you'd be out all day doing your thing, and you'd get home and you would get messages if people were trying to get hold of you, and nothing bad happened, and the world continued to revolve, and you actually enjoyed what you were doing so much better because you were completely present in that thing. Yeah. So yeah, I think unplugging from technology for you, James, would probably make a big difference and turn the news off. Okay, third question, which is from Emily. How can I stop overthinking and second guessing myself in important decisions? That sounds like a perfectionist to me.
Perfectionism and a lack of self-trust. Because it could kind of go two ways there, because if you're if you're second guessing, I think it's about learning to trust yourself. So look at when you have made the right decision, and actually there's no right or wrong, it's all a practice if we learn from it. So learning to trust yourself, look at where you've made good decisions and go, oh yeah, I did good then. Oh, look what happened. Okay. And also look at how you feel in your body when you go, oh, well, you know what, I didn't make a good decision then. How did that feel? oh, okay, that's an indicator that wasn't right for me. So you start to recognize yourself, because I think we start to override our own like internal guidance system. And we say, oh, I'm not sure, should I, shouldn't I, should. And it's like, well, figure out, what does it feel like when it's a full body yes or a no? And you can look back in hindsight and say, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done that thing that I did. How did it feel in your body? So you can start to learn those lessons. So you get really good at listening to your own inner knowing and that gut feelings, because our guts are so powerful. We've got more neurons communicating from our gut to our brain than we do going up our spine to our brain. So trust that gut, trust yourself, and learn to remember and feel what it is in your body, where it is a yes or a no. And the perfectionism, oh my gosh, that's a whole podcast in itself.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's that case of make a decision, even if that decision's not perfect, but it kind of feels all right or better for you. I found myself in this very position even this week, where I've had to make a decision about business premises. And every decision that I had to make, there was no perfect decision. Each one of them, if you did this, it impacts that. If you do that, you impact that. And you're like, none of these feel great. I'm not massively happy about all of them. And then you drop into analysis paralysis, and you're in danger of making no decision whatsoever. So I had to say to myself, what decision feels better to me right now? That does. Right, we're going to go with that, and we're going to start doing that. And then if I need to refine, and if it turns out to be the wrong decision, I would rather make the wrong decision than no decision, because that means you're stuck.
Yeah.
You're trapped.
And another thing with the perfectionism, depending on what it's about, like if you are so focused and let's say you're overworking or you're creating or something, it's never quite perfect, you've got to put more in and more in, give yourself a time limit. And whatever I've done because there's no such thing as perfect. There isn't. Give yourself a time limit. If it's a decision you're needing to make as well, you can go, okay, I need to make the decision by here. Because, my goodness, when we get down to the 11th hour, like, how fast can we make a decision when it's like, right, it's like now or never. Get this in by a deadline, now or never. And, yeah, there's no such thing as perfect. And, again, that's coming back to reflecting on yourself. And it could be, where did you feel you needed to be perfect before? And that can kind of start going over into the people-pleasing area. And we've talked about this in previous shows as well.
Yeah, and I think, it's listen to the stories you're telling yourself, because there's clues within the stories.
See if you can understand why you're a perfectionist. Is it a trauma response for something in the past? You're so bothered about rejection, criticism, or whatever. Or is it the person that you're working with and you're presenting to is overcritical and makes you feel that way? I've always been a perfectionist, or I was for a long time, and it held me back quite a long, because I'd spend so much time concentrating on one task.
Yeah.
In reality, I could have done another 3.
Yeah.
So it did hamper me, and it was a trauma response. It was my fear of criticism.
Yeah.
But have faith in yourself, I'd say. But I mean, the original question was...
It was how to stop overthinking and second-guessing myself in important decisions.
Yeah.
So, make a decision, one that feels better for you, not necessarily perfect. That's what I would say. Yeah. And at least there's some kind of activity and there's some kind of movement.
If it's an important decision, it'll be quite factually based, I would have thought.
Having been a super duper perfectionist myself in the past, it's coming with that. That's why I was saying, learn to look back at when you have known that it's a yes or a no, so trust, so that you learn to trust yourself. And then the perfectionism part is letting it go and working yourself. Again, we're always going to come back to working yourself so you can build your own confidence and your own self-belief. When I've made good decisions, this is how it felt. And for me, it's all about self-trust and confidence, and it's doing the inner work. But yeah, short term is look at where you've made good or decisions you've perceived as not so good. But yeah, choose the better of the options.
Make a decision, run with it, and you'll always figure it out. There's very few decisions that can't be rethought, or it's very, very rare that you make that decision and it's going to be the end of the world right now once you hit that button.
Yeah.
Just go with what feels right and don't overthink it. Just
Okay. So the last question for this episode is from Mike. And he said, after being in a toxic relationship, how do I trust again without bringing my past into my next relationship? Big question.
Big question.
I think my point of view would be you've got to work on your stuff, whatever stuff you've got from that last relationship, before you even think about moving into the next relationship. Because if you've got unhealed wounds, you'll carry that over and you're going to get triggered and you're probably going to do damage within that relationship.
Yeah.
that's it. Sometimes your baggage will destroy good people.
Yeah.
You know, you'll be triggered by stuff that happened in the past, and you'll have a really good person in front of you potentially that's trying to figure out why the hell you're going off like you are, because your response is based on something that happened with the previous partner.
Yeah, this next person isn't your ex.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's what I was, I wasn't putting into words very well.
I've seen it with clients and with friends. If they go like straight back into a relationship, like serial monogamous, is that you know what I mean? That they haven't given themselves the time to process and to look at the learnings and where they can work on themselves. I've also know some other friends who have individually been single for a number of years, worked on themselves, and they are the happiest couple I've ever seen. And they've been working through some stuff that's come up for one of them personally. But it's so amazing to see a healthy relationship where people have come together having healed, and yes, they've been through their own traumas and triggers, but they're both coming to this relationship. It's like, oh yeah, like this is they're whole and they've worked on themselves. So it's definitely about working on yourself.
I think you've got to focus on your self-worth.
Yeah, absolutely. Because most people, they come out of a toxic relationship, they're low on confidence, self-esteem, self-image, and it's not good. So you need to heal before. You need to figure out what did you do to enable that other person's behaviour. I'm not saying encourage that behaviour, but that behaviour continued to happen over a period of time. What enabled that? What triggered you? What upsets you? What made you feel good? What are you going to look for in a new relationship? But ultimately, what you need to do is step back and find yourself again. Find who you are, your authentic self. And then once you feel better with who you are and you can live on your own without the need for somebody else in a comfortable way, then you're not grasping to just bring somebody in to fill the void. You're relaxed, you've got time, you're putting yourself, a nice confident version of yourself out there that's not putting any expectations or sort of prejudgment on people. So I would definitely say just take time to heal, step back, find who you are and understand what you're looking for, what things upset you in that relationship, what things did you like. Were they active but you like more intellectual stuff? What kind of common ground do you feel that you like, that you want to share with somebody?
Absolutely. The thing is, I think, like when we talked about self-worth there, if you work on your self-worth, then your confidence will come in a relationship. It's a bit like if you're starving. If you're starving, you'll eat scraps. But if you're nourished, you'll not reach for scraps. You'll go for healthier food. Does that kind of make sense?
Great
Probably
analogy.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. So I would definitely work on your self-worth and fall back in love with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your life and your interests, and then you'll attract the right people into your life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, good set of questions there. That brings this episode to an end, and we will catch you in the next episode of Tickety Boo.
If you or someone close to you needs to access mental health support, please contact your GP, or if it's out with normal office hours, get in touch with NHS 24 on 111. Alternatively, contact the Samaritans on 116 123. All calls are free of charge from any phone. You can also find more support information on the Tickety Boo website, ticketyboopodcast.co.uk.